welcome to Philly Coco presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 29. This is a developer's journey into making cool stuff. We are the wind-up to this developer's fastball. I'm Kotaro.
Steve.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development that primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, and watchOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey.
Yeah. This is a special week because the Phillies are in the World Series, right?
Yes.
That was a reference there.
That's the reference.
And Aaron is out this week because he's doing something like more interesting.
More interesting?
I'm sure.
Well, he's helping out with I guess it's like a conference or a convention. Yeah.
He's like cool. He's a cool dude.
He's a cool dude.
He's doing that, so he's not gonna be able to, save us from ourselves here today. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens. It's just two of us.
Well,
it's always trouble.
He's usually good if we stray too far. He's usually the one to do a very good job of correcting us. So
today, I thought we would talk about something that we've kind of mentioned many times before, I think, on here, but never. I don't think we did an entire show about it, which was what is an app. And
what is an app?
What is an app today? Like, what is an app? Because I'm at work starting the process of like redesigning an app, right, making a new one from like scratch, and we're looking into what is the modern way of doing an app. What are the modern approaches? What is like the way, as it were, to do this stuff? And we've talked about that before, where like Apple's saying Swift UI and stuff. But I mean more like philosophically, or more like maybe a higher level to start with. What is an app? And you've been working on all the latest frameworks from Apple for a while now in your job, so you're in touch with all the different features you can have. I've been reading like the HIG. I've been looking at examples apps from Apple and elsewhere, and I really think, and based on our discussions we had before in like Side Project Saturday and the regular meetup, it does seem that since many years ago when we started doing this, the idea of an app has definitely evolved.
Yes.
But before we get into that, real quick, PickleJarTodo update.
The PickleJarTodo app, which is what we are currently working on. So for people who don't know, so basically a habit-forming app, more or less a glorified to-do list app. But for us, the intention is to make it so that we would be able to record our habits a little bit to see if we follow them or not, and maybe provide some guidance as to why.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that'll encourage us to do the habits again. So 25 push-ups a day as an example, or drawing for an hour a day as an example. Now, our last update, we had made some minor breakthrough, well, not minor, but like relative breakthroughs in terms of the UI and getting all the UI components in there, and some core data architectural changes that helped improve, as well as adding ways to integrate images into our core data stack, or backend, I should say. Well, how far have we got since then? We've made no progress. So it's just one of those like weird 2 weeks of
life got in the way here.
Yes. I mean, Aaron actually has a legit excuse, particularly for what he was working on for this past month. So free pass there. I don't have an excuse. It just was not like I just didn't make the time. Really, it's about making time. And in this case,
I mean, I make little. I can only make little chunks of time. It's tough doing it at night after a long day. And I had a lot of other things come up in life, and we talked about it before. Eventually, we will get this thing done. And we'll maybe by the time you listen to this, we'll have made progress
slowly but surely.
So we don't really have anything to talk about there, but that's okay, because you're not really here to listen to that anyway. You're here to listen to our brilliant insights about the
going back to the original topic. I mean, back then, I think when we were just starting, a lot of it was very simple. very simple apps that was always focused within the app. I mean, even now, like a lot of times when people build apps, the core UIs that they would focus on are everything inside the app. So whatever happens inside the app. But in recent years, Apple and Google in a lot of ways, and Android in a lot of ways, I should say, is kind of migrating outside of just inside the app. Like they really want you to take advantage of the extensions that go outside of the app that are integrated in throughout the entire system.
So what I would describe it as back in the day when this was all new, right?
Sure.
There's an app for that.
Mm-hmm.
The idea being like your phone or your iPad was a screen that every app you opened, your iPad or your phone became that app. That was kind of the metaphor. So you had a grid of apps, you tapped to launch them, and that was it. The entire experience, you said, was inside that app. There was very little outside it. I mean, you had push notifications pretty early, but again, those originally were just a message that you tapped that opened the app. And then, once you're in your app, you do your thing, you'd hit the home button when you were done, and then you'd go to some other task. And so each app was this focused experience on a particular task, and that's how they pushed that. That was the messaging for the early days of the App Store. And honestly, as you said, a lot of apps are still kind of that philosophy, especially if you built stuff a long time ago and you've only been you haven't upgraded it to use all the latest stuff. But over the years, as you pointed out, Apple and Google have added so many features to the operating systems. And they're obviously trying, the way I was thinking about it yesterday at a side project, because we're recording this the day after we just had a side project, is that it seems like they're maybe trying to go with create a super app, but at the operating system level, if you think about it. If maybe that makes some sense, because we'll talk about some of these things, but there's so many features, especially since, when would you say, iOS 12 or 14? When did they start doing iMessage stuff? That's what I'm thinking of, when they really started pushing a whole bunch of different things. Siri integration and iMessage stuff. It was a while ago. They've been building it up.
Yeah. Well, I think you can say it might have started with like push notifications, right? As sort of like integrating.
It started. It was like the tiptoe in the water with push notifications, where something outside the app could happen
that your app can sort of integrate.
Like you didn't control what the message looked like. You just the operating system did.
But it allowed you to communicate with your users outside of just the app experience, right? And so the way I've sort of looked at it, nowadays there's so many opportunities for a developer to communicate with their users that are not just the app experience. Like I noticed a lot. I noticed this thing with a lot of when I was a freelancer, a lot of clients who just focus on the UI experience from inside the app. So they would spend a lot of time with like, oh, I want to make sure that the app icon is the best thing in the world. It has to stand out against all the other icons. I have to make sure that once you're in there, I have this great onboarding experience, and I have these, these consistent UI elements, whether it be color schemes or icons or fonts that are just custom and specific to that app. And I need to have my own unique, hamburger button.
Oh yeah, I gotta have that delicious hamburger button.
Especially if the focus was like, it's weird because it's I can kind of empathize in the sense like your responsibility is to the brand of the company, right? In terms of like you're trying to make sure that your company's platform can express itself the way it wants to express itself within the app.
Yeah.
Once you get there, but nowadays with so many apps inside the app library, it's kind of like it's almost like Apple's way of shelving all the apps in like this one space.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was a study or some kind of paper that said that most people on average maybe only has approximately 8-ish apps that they use regularly on their phone.
I could believe that. Because I look at screen time, and it's like the same top few apps over and over again.
Yeah, So at any one given time, right? And a good chunk of those are probably going to be on the homepage, and then everything else is going to be like hidden. So how do you, as an app that maybe won't be used, very frequently, let's say a banking app, or maybe that app might be used maybe like a couple times a week, versus like I don't know, versus like Twitter or a social media app where the whole intention is to keep you on that app for as long as possible, right? Like everybody wants to be that app, but not everybody can be that app.
Yeah. So that app library point, that's good. I always forget the app library exists because, as you said, I only use a handful of apps most of the time, and then I search for the apps I want. Usually, just I pull down. I still do that gesture. I'm so used to it. Instead of but the fact that they did create this app library, it was meant. I guess it was promoted as organizing the mess that your home screens became with all the apps you might have installed, but. It's just kind of a place where the apps just get hidden. It's actually a little bit annoying to take it out of the library and put it on your home screen. You have to really want it because you got to find it over there first. Then you got to, and it's like you got to hold and tap it, and you got to hit a button, and then you got to like do it again. You got to move it. It's very awkward. I don't appreciate that because I like putting my apps in little folders and stuff. But it makes sense though when you're saying that the app experience is now beyond the borders of the app itself. It's like now we want you to get engagement through other channels that are going to launch you into the app experiences as necessary. And so you don't really need to have that app front and center necessarily on your home screen anymore. I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
especially if it's an app that's not something you would expect to use constantly every day.
Like, both Android and Apple give you the tools to get your app back onto that page in a variety of ways, whether it be through widgets. Like, I always get frustrated with not frustrated, but like, I guess bemused that's such an easy win, but nobody wants to do it because it's such a foreign concept to them. So like.
Well, who's them? Developers?
Product owners, I should say.
Product owners.
So people who are in charge of the decision of what are the features in an app.
Yeah.
And so usually my pitch about it is that one widget, the smallest widget, takes up a grid of 4 app icons. What brand would not want that screen real estate? Like it shocks me to no end that doesn't become the priority.
And despite the fact that you don't have a lot of like control, you control what it looks like. You build a little view, but you don't have a lot of space and you have a lot of restrictions of what it could do, but they are all distinct.
Yeah,
it's a good point that you get much more. I don't know, what would you say, like shelf space? I don't know what's the word we're looking for.
You get a very huge amount of shelf space.
I have no idea what the metrics are about how often widgets are used, and I guess it's going to be very particular to your audience, to your customer base, because some people are going to use them more than others. But I don't even use a ton, but I do use some third parties and some from Apple. So even I do, and I'm like not the widget guy.
Yeah, the thing is like if you provide a useful widget, it will be used, and the beauty about it is that you will know just by the fact that it's being used that there's an intentionality that people want to use it, and then it will take you back into the app.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we're not going to go in, I guess, into like analytics and stuff. It's a little off topic, but you do want to have some way of knowing, what aspects of the app are using. And so in the past, I've done analytics and stuff. But what is even better than seeing a number that says, okay, this screen is launched a lot on aggregate, is how many people actually put the app on their home screen. That's that's a way stronger signal.
Sure.
Because it, as you said, it is unmistakable as an intention.
And these are all the surprise and delight kind of features that
widgets are delightful when they work, actually.
When they work well. Yeah. The ones that I keep thinking like, man, I wish they had like an NBA or like one of those sports ones so I don't have to constantly like open up a
That's going to be a live activity, I'm sure.
That has to be a live, right? And that's another way, right? Using live activity, the dynamic island, because it kind of similar things. where you get that on a lock screen.
Yeah, what the live activities thing is kind of it's like a widget on the lock screen that can update dynamically, like you push data to it.
Sure. Yeah.
Or is it pull? I haven't looked at it.
I believe it's push. Yeah, I mean, you can push. Yeah.
And so it's like a medium-sized widget or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On your home screen update. So and that UI is something you can control.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's actually very cool. And then dynamic island. What can you do in the dynamic island?
It works very similar to the live activity. So
much smaller icon.
Yeah. Well, it's a much smaller icon when you see it inside the island, but you tap on it, it opens. You can use the live activity view basically to show the same thing.
I have the 14 Pro Max, and I actually do use that dynamic island. Now, not a lot of stuff is being very useful in there, but I'm starting to see some apps start supporting it.
Right.
And it's nice. It's kind of like having a little shelf that's always there, and you just long press, and you get the little control. It's actually very useful for, especially for the audio.
And it's very similar to it's a very sneaky way to get multitasking in.
Yeah. You can have two items up there at once, depending on what they are.
Right. So I think that's another example of integrating your app inside the system without having to have them search for your app icon.
Yeah, like if you're doing something especially that deals with media at all, like you have to support Dynamic Island. I mean, it's once you get used to it, it's so convenient to have those controls easily accessible. Because normally what I would do is I'd swipe down to bring down the what does Apple call it, the control panel or something.
Yeah.
I'd go down there in order to access there's like a little built-in widget to get to your audio and controls. But this is actually a little bit easier. So yeah, I would definitely want to do dynamic island and live activities.
Right, but that's not even, there's multiple other ways you can do Siri integration.
So Siri integration would be literally just talking to Siri and having your app do stuff.
Right. So basically, it would be kind of in the context of order me a burger from Wendy's using the DoorDash app.
Yeah, they did have that as a I remember when they did the first version of the Siri integration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to order food via Siri because it can't understand me like half the time.
Right. I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but the context is the phrasing is about the same.
Yeah.
Like how you would phrase it.
Do you use Siri integration for any third-party apps a lot?
No, but I don't. Again, this is the way I use the phone is dramatically different. Yeah. I realize nobody uses these devices the same way, right? So you have to open that option up.
Yeah. Home. If you have a HomeKit type of app, makes total sense. Now you want Siri integration, and if your app makes sense to have voice controls through like a HomePod, that works through that, right? Through
yeah. So you can do the same thing that way too for the other app.
Yeah. So that works really well. I like apps that have messages in them, like messages, but think where it can read out some message you're getting from somewhere, some text or news. That actually works as I use that a lot. I try. Well, recently it's sort of broken for some reason on Siri, for me. But normally I would ask it to give me the news, and then it would play I think NPR podcast or whatever.
Okay.
But I would ask it to, obviously when you're doing it in the car, that's another place that we always forget about. But CarPlay integration or Siri integration for when driving is a big thing. I've never done any CarPlay, so I don't even know how hard that is. I don't have CarPlay, and you definitely don't have CarPlay. I've seen your car.
Yeah, I got a old school Yaris.
Although, man, and this is a little bit off topic, but that's what we do here. I just discovered. I don't know why I only just discovered this. You can buy for $300, $300, pretty good 8-inch-ish screens that do CarPlay that you just can mount with a window sucky thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking, like a suction cup sucky thing. What's wrong with me? I'm tired today.
That's your podcast title now. Window sucky thing.
Oh my god, what is a sucky thing? But no, you can mount it on your dashboard or off the window or something, and then it just plugs into your aux input for sound, plugs into your power, and then it has USB ports and it has integration with that, and so you can add it to your car.
Now that you mentioned that, CarPlay integration as well, right? So like if your app is a listening app or an audio playback app of some kind, right? A reader app, quote unquote, like that's a great opportunity to integrate CarPlay and have that as an opportunity for like, because there's so few apps on CarPlay.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I think that's a sleeper hit there because here's a little story. So Chrissy, my girlfriend, right? She had a rental car a while, not a rental car. She had a like a loaner car a while back because her main car was getting serviced, and this car was like some new Toyota Rav4 or something gave her, and it had CarPlay in it, and that was like the thing. She was just amazed, like blew her mind having CarPlay because neither of us have ever had CarPlay. And so she's like, this is amazing. She plugs in her phone and like it just pops up with the icons and it's a big screen. And so I'm telling you, normal people who have maybe not experienced CarPlay, and there's a lot of people that have cars that still don't have CarPlay because if like CarPlay seems ubiquitous now, but it's actually not. It wasn't added to a lot of new cars except for a few years ago. Like there were a lot of cars that still didn't have CarPlay until recent years. So people keep their cars for a long time. So anyway, what I'm saying is that's a great idea, CarPlay integration. And you can buy one of these screens that's not an actual like car head unit. Sure. You can just buy one of these CarPlay screens to do the development on, and then you could pop it in your ancient Toyota if you got one.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that are kind of going along with that sort of like extension, whether it be CarPlay, you could also integrate a WatchKit app. Doesn't have to be anything big because watch apps in general are not supposed to be big. They're supposed to be you're supposed to utilize them and treat them as if like a user would use them in like seconds versus like minutes, in the context of seconds, not in the context of minutes.
It's assuming your watch can like boot up the app fast enough.
Yeah. But like, if you have something that you can integrate a watch for, that's another way to get your app seen in different little areas of the Apple ecosystem.
I use like the Overcast app a lot on there. I use like the built-in timer app. I use a calendar app. So like displaying, I use it a lot for like a dashboard of information I need right on my wrist, and for like a shortcut into some kind of action, like doing like the shortcut or like doing a timer. And I have my fitness stuff on here. I have a fasting app on here because I do like that intermittent fasting. So I have like that app on here, and that has a little screen. So yeah, those kinds of things. In fact, I interact with that fasting app primarily through my watch because I actually don't like its main UI interface. Like I think that it doesn't work for me. I think it's overly complicated and annoying. But the watch is very, very simple. It's literally just one button, start and stop.
Right. I guess the other thing that kind of on a side, I remember thinking when stickers came out for iMessage.
Yeah, man. iMessage stickers.
I just went full hog on that because it's an interesting concept in a way where, I mean, iMessage stickers can be you can just sell them by themselves on the iMessage App Store,
which nobody remembers exists.
Nobody remembers exists, but you still get a little bit of residuals from that. People
but
still buy
it does. If you, I think the main way you get into that is if somebody uses a sticker and then it has that little link at the bottom if you don't have the app installed. Yeah, and then it just takes you to the store.
Or you can give them away. You can add them as an extension to your app, and assuming you can do something very, you can get creative with the type of stickers you put on there, because all they are is like either PNGs or animated PNGs. Like really, you don't have to do too much to get them in there.
The standard simplest sticker app is not really an app. It's just kind of like a bundle of assets more than anything else.
Exactly.
And I use some stickers, but I think the problem with the stickers is Apple doesn't really like let people know they exist very well. Like there's a discoverability problem, I think. But if you get people to know they exist.
Well, I think that's the thing that we sort of have to accept, that that's a discoverability issue, even though like every 4th of July or every Christmas, I'll get tons of downloads because they have they're animated firework stickers. And so if you can figure out a niche, you can add them as an attachment or an extension to your app, and they become like a little free promo because now people have not only downloaded the stickers, they've downloaded your app along. Your app comes along for the ride,
and I think that's probably the best way.
Mm-hmm.
The standalone stickers, standalone messages apps are. I don't know if I use any of their standalone.
I should put that in some of my.
You could do a standalone message app, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I looked into it years ago, but I don't think I use anything that's only that.
Mm-hmm.
It still has to come across with a bundle. It's weird when you do a standalone one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, iMessage stuff is another one of those sleeper ones that I don't know any. I don't have one. I haven't built one, so I don't know how. And it's going to be very dependent on your particular product. But
sure,
you've gotten some success with doing sticker packs. But have you done a iMessage extension to something else?
I have, but only in the context of an extra sticker.
Okay, but not like a full-fledged app.
No, like it's a weird platform. And now that I've gone full Swift UI, I don't know what type of support they have for Swift UI in that framework. But it's actually kind of interesting because like basically you're creating an UI within the iMessage window area, and so you can do some interesting things to integrate that into like a message. So if you wanted to play a game of tic-tac-toe, for example, and have that as like a turn-based tic-tac-toe, like you and me would like iMessage each other back our moves, and then eventually we would come to some consensus. Or if we wanted to create a group chat voting system,
that's another good one.
You could do something like that, and that would actually be pretty straightforward and interesting app to do.
The one that I used to use, and I wonder if they even support it anymore. There was like, I think Fandango had one or something. One of these.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still have it. A lot of places kind of had them and then they dropped them, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's because messages got better at just integrating like links with images, and so then it was like less useful.
And it's again, a lot of these things that we are talking about, it's not like they're like an easy thing to integrate. You have to spend some time to do it well. And so like people might try to prototype these and be like, all right, this is not for us, and really not give it a fair chance.
Yeah. Although also I think we would say you don't have to do all of these things.
Yeah,
like,
you don't have to do all of them.
We're going through a lot of the options here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like app clips and shortcuts.
App clips are cool. I've only counted them a few times. They came out like, and what they are, right? Where I think they're like, what they are 14. In real life when you encounter them. What is it like? Usually a QR code,
mm-hmm.
or it could be an NFC thing.
Yeah.
And then it's basically like an extension of your app that loads without the whole app downloading, right?
So they're great in the context of like you go to a restaurant, right? And you say, "Oh, I want to order some food here," and they're like, they point to a barcode. You point to that barcode, it opens up an app clip, right? Which is like a very small version of your app, and it has to be super lightweight. So you have to like you could probably have enough for like one flow, right? So that one flow could be ordering the food, or on that, or they could download your full app, and then I don't know, get some extra bonuses or something. But
I mean, if I was the product owner,
mm-hmm.
I would be like, well, why do this and not just a little web app? Because that's what I've encountered in my life, is especially since the pandemic, was QR code to just open websites.
Right. I mean, the point being is that
the experience is not nearly as good as an app clip.
Yeah, the experience is what you're going for, right? Because in the end of the day, users don't necessarily care. I mean, they might get a little freaked out by app clips, but they don't necessarily care assuming that the experience feels good.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, the way I thought about app clips was restaurants may not actually be the best example because, you can do them with, people just use these web apps for them, and it's it's more straightforward. But parking apps, that's a common one, mm-hmm. I think, that's used. That's a good one. That's a good one. If it basically something where people are not normally going to want to download your app until they're in a situation where they need to use it, and it's unlikely that they have downloaded it ahead of time. So you don't want to be forcing them to download this app. Maybe they don't have great cell reception or something. So the idea is that this is a really small, focused flow that's going to solve the problem in the moment that they can immediately access. And if you have those kinds of scenarios, I mean, app clips might be cool. I think the problem with app clips adoption, and I don't know how much they've been adopted, but didn't they come out like right before the pandemic, like the 2019? And then everything shut down and like the world went upside down. So I wonder if that had something to do with
probably had a lot to do with it.
Because I remember I was all excited. I was like, oh, I'm going to go out and maybe I can make an app clip. Maybe I'll see these out in the world with the little app clip icons. And then all of a sudden I wasn't allowed to go outside. So, it was rough.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because from that point of view, that's an interesting user story where the user doesn't even have your app downloaded yet, versus like something like Shortcuts, where that's more of a power user integration where it's allowing you to get access to certain parts of your app, basically give access to certain parts of your app outside of your app to integrate with other apps. So you can create workflows that can do like a string of stuff. So maybe if you have a HomeKit style app where it's like, okay, like I want to start this flow where, like let's say you walk out the door, you want to say after maybe it has a geolocation that like keeps track of me, and like maybe like 100 meters away the door locks automatically, and then and then it sends me an iMessage that says I've locked the door, and then it sends it to all the people that need to know.
Shortcuts. Shortcuts is a very powerful set of automations you can do and if you open up the app, you can just kind of scroll around and see what apps support it and what functions they have in there, and you link them all together. It's actually pretty intuitive, and there's like a built-in gallery, I think, of certain things, and then I've seen a place, I think Mac Rumors had their own gallery for stuff before. There's like other third-party places people have these that you can download through like a weird iCloud link.
It used to be before 6 came out, it was really hard to integrate because the user had to tell the system, you had to like go into your app and explicitly say, I want this shortcut. Press add, and then you had to go into the Shortcuts app and it's like, oh, there it is.
And then it would have to open the shortcut when it ran. It would like open the Shortcuts app, and before Shortcuts, it was even worse because then all you had were like the deep links things, and so if there was like a pattern of like how you should make your deep link URLs so that you could integrate. Remember what was that called? I'm blanking on it, but there was like this kind of the pattern that people just kind of adopted so that you could link around, and it was not great.
Right. So I think those the stuff that we've talked about so far, and I'm sure there's stuff we're missing, but I think especially there is a variation of all these type of technologies on both iOS and Android. I think when you're building, and so now the question becomes as a product owner, like what are the ones that are very relevant for you, your companies or your app, right? And then what is the user stories you want to take advantage of here, and of course how much resources you have to actually do it, right? I think all of these are fair questions to ask yourself in terms of like, are any of these of any priority to you as a developer, as a product owner?
Right. So you would still probably, you focus on the main app. Like that's still going to be your priority, right? Most of the time.
Sure.
I mean, we're being really general because, you're not, I mean, because I can imagine a scenario where, you really just want a thing that gives you push notifications really, really well or something like that. And like, it's not a lot going on in the app UI itself, or you really want something that maybe you're doing like a utility or something and it's more of behind the scenes utility working with shortcuts. Like I can imagine these scenarios where your UI, your main app UI is not the biggest thing, but still we're not saying don't worry about your primary app experience. I don't think Apple's even saying that, or Google either. They put a lot of effort into human interface guidelines and material design on the Google side for the stuff, but that these other things should maybe be like maybe one level down from that. In
on
thinking,
on some level, maybe I am sort of saying like, and maybe it's just me being sort of like confused by modern app development process, where there's so much focused on the inside of the app, and there's so much opportunity to think outside that box now.
Okay, so maybe the design process is should change, should evolve. So in the traditional way is, well, I mean, there's lots of ways, but the traditional ways, you have the mock-ups, you design the user interface inside the app, and then you go and implement it. Like, that's really oversimplified. So maybe now you think about more like what are the experiences in total, and how are they best implemented in the app, in a widget, and maybe in messages, dynamic island, and then you kind of maybe more holistically like implement these features.
Like,
it's hard because you got to have some kind of structure to the design process.
I agree. I still feel like I'm in this. There's sort of like we're all collectively in this sort of weird middle state of like denial in some ways.
Like, this doesn't exist. No, I don't have all these, because there's so many things now that if you try to implement all of them by yourself, like you don't have a big team or something, then it seems overwhelming.
Yeah, a lot of times people try to make an app bigger than its necessary purpose is intended for. Right, a utility app is only going to be used when you need to use it. A reader app is only going to be useful as long as the content is good, right? I don't want to like and subscribe or just constantly like things. Like if I'm watching or reading like an article thing, I don't want to be like engaged in, forced to be engaged with it more than I have to. But same with any other app in general, right? And
so it's the question I have then is, what metric or metrics can you use to justify some of these experiences? Like if you're in that situation where you're like, we want to get buy-in to build these things, the question's obviously going to be, well, why? Like, and then you're going to want to say because X. It's like you can easily say we're going to build this screen and we built this thing, we put it out there, and we're getting this engagement. But like, I don't know, how do you measure the usefulness of some of this stuff for your end users and justify from a business perspective? Or it's just really hard to come up with a clear.
I mean, it's not that hard, depending on like. Here's a really good example of a feature that is commonly ignored, but easy to implement and relatively easy to gauge whether or not it's going to get any feedback. It's like dark mode.
Oh yeah, dark mode.
Relatively straightforward to implement. Doesn't take that much time. Maybe like one sprint cycle. Not many big companies do it because they don't see the value, even though there are metrics that say there are research papers. There are, I guess, research that has said it's good for A, it's good for battery life. B, it's good on your eyes during like high contrast when you're in the dark.
I run everything in dark mode.
Sure, and then you see it's it's the cool kids love it. So
and if an app doesn't have dark mode, which actually is pretty rare now for the apps I use, but if there's no dark mode, it's blinding.
Yeah,
you go into, you're like, whoa, everything's white. What is going on?
And you really notice it. It's hilarious because like there's this constant need of like, oh, we gotta attract the younger demographic, and it's like, well, you don't have dark mode. Like that was like a clear win, and you didn't take it.
Yeah. So you have to, when you're thinking about these, you got to think about, how do I measure? Or maybe you don't always have to think of this. I guess it depends on your organization. But I imagine you want to think about how you're going to measure whether these work.
Screw the measurements. All right.
Screw the measurements.
Here's the thing that
I'm a rebel here.
You are always asking the wrong question. You're asking why not. I'm sorry. You're asking why, and I'm asking why not. All right. Like you want to get your developers psyched about something. You want them, willing to work on something, give them something cool to work on. Give them opportunities to try something different, to try a little bit outside the box. What is it going to hurt you? Sometimes these extensions, like widget extensions, by default, they're only going to be available to to the users that can actually support it. So why not run a few widgets that are within reason?
And some of these do not require an extensive amount of development time, probably. Sure. Like widgets are one of those that probably does not because it's highly limited. However, I would say some of these other ones, shortcut support, that would probably take a bit of development time. Some the app clip that might take maybe.
Dynamic Island could take a little bit of time. To do it reasonably, the watch extension for sure.
Watch extension, Siri integration. So they have different levels of commitment. So that's where I'm saying you're gonna get a question like why time for this versus this other thing. How do you justify it for some of this stuff? If it's not, maybe it's just if it's not obvious, then maybe it's not good for a fit.
Sure, I would say, for example. Sticker packs are you don't have to have 100 or 12 is a fairly decent amount, and if you have your brand, if you want to put your brand logos everywhere, just put them in the sticker pack.
Yeah, I mean that's such an easy one because especially if you have a designer already, your designer would probably be a nice afternoon design some stickers, and then it requires almost no effort to get that into your, especially if you have an existing app already. And then you have this place where, maybe 99% of the users will never find it, but some will. And that's a very easy win to get some more unobtrusive brand awareness.
Sure. I mean, that's if we're going to speak in that context. But the point is, like, they're always talking about, like, how do we get people back into the app and how do we do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, here are literally 10 different ways of ways to get them back in there, and then sort of the excuse making pops up, and so that's where the question about the why versus why not, in my mind, is like, you have a team that can do amazing stuff. Give them the green light to do it. Like, who is it going to hurt?
Yeah. I would say the extension point that is used most in my experience is push notifications, and those can also be abused. Sure. So I think the other side of this coin is you can get very excited about making these things, but don't abuse your power here because you could have the opposite effect of what you want. Something like push notifications is the best example because it pisses people off when you misuse the push notifications and people start getting ads or something they didn't want or out of context push notifications because they're already so overwhelmed, because this is a feature that everybody implements. So you got to be careful to do it right.
Yes, agreed. I think one of the interesting things
don't be evil.
Don't be evil. But like a lot of these tools, whether it be app clip, widgets, watch, even stickers to a certain degree, live activity, dynamic island, shortcuts, Siri integration, even, like, none of those are intrusive in my mind. They're only there when you're looking for them.
So those are the ones that you might get the best bang for your buck because of that, because they demonstrate, and because if you build the simplest version of them that provides value, that could be a strategy to do. Mm-hmm. If and you make users aware that they exist. I think this is actually a problem on iOS, especially. You just don't know they exist. If you get some amount of engagement, that should be easy to see, and then you can justify more resources on it. And because it's very valuable engagement because it is so intentional. That's the thing I think I want to get across that you mentioned at first, is that the use of a lot of these is a very strong signal that users of your app find this valuable, and whatever that is that you're doing in there is an experience that you should probably focus attention on. Make sure that it's as good as it could be, because users are saying, I want this experience. I'm using this. I'm finding it valuable because I'm intentionally putting it on my home screen. And that
to me is the value of an app, is when they're useful. right? They give the users superpowers. I mean,
It
that's
takes us back to there's an app for that,
right.
where the whole marketing message was your phone is giving you these like new powers, these new abilities you didn't have before. Now you're walking around with a supercomputer in your pocket, connected to the internet, and you can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
like
so
like there's a amazing fart app. I was like,
right,
and more useful. Remember the one where it was like drinking a beer when you tilted the phone, would use the accelerometer.
We had talked about what it would be to make a next generation fart app, and we wanted to like modulate. You and I were talking like we should use the gestures to like modulate it so that the sound you're like oh, but you know what's hilarious too is like I was talking to a friend who's like he's really good with sound engineering, and I was talking to him and I was like, what would it take to make a modulating fart app? And he did some research on this and trying to figure out like it's like what is the sound that I need to do to like make it so that I can modulate it to make it sound like other farts. And it's like the bass sound that you have to make it do is basically like make it sound like an air conditioner, right? So it's about right. So it's basically sounds like an air conditioner, and then from that bass sound you modulate it to all the other sounds.
You're so far off the rails now.
and it's like, well, how do we make somebody fart so you get that sound bit? And because it's like, well, we have to do it. We have to be authentic. You'd have to be
you got to be authentic.
So the person, whoever is making this fart sound, has to like fart in a way like burn, just like.
See, this is what happens when Aaron's not here. We just devolved to children talking about fart apps. You can't even build this because Apple will reject you outright, won't they? They will not take them.
That's because people don't make next gen fart apps. Like this is actually would make a really good iMessage app.
Oh yeah, send farts. Oh my god!
Because like you go into the iMessage, you
tap the tween boy market, I guess,
and then send that audio to your friends. That's what you did.
Oh my god! Although sending little audio clips for fun, like that, I actually do that to troll my dad or something. Sure. I'll just like record something. I'll say something and record a sound and like send it. It's
so
the little...
instead of actually having to record yourself farting, you can actually just make a fart sound.
I'm sure it'll be much higher fidelity if you use a fart app.
I mean, honestly, that's what we really should be using Stable Diffusion for. None of this.
Yeah, I know, right?
Stable Diffusion for audio. None of this silliness. Make me a fart noise.
Oh my god! You know that it's going to happen.
Of course,
it's going to be someone who's going to come out with that.
All the worst ideas have to come out first before we get to the good ones.
Indeed.
Was it 1,000 no's before we get that one yes?
Oh my god.
Yes. But all right, sorry, I did not mean to derail that. But going back to this idea, what is an app, right? That is a question for you as a developer that needs to be asked nowadays, considering how much the Apple and Google in that sense are trying to like de-emphasize them or accessing them directly in your wall of your pages of apps that you're trying to get to.
They're focused on multiple kinds of experiences that are mediated by operating system features, to be real like kind of technical about it.
Sure.
Versus experiences that are just inside the app that you totally control. So you got to really think about, I guess, what is the purpose of this app? What are the tasks that users of this app are trying to accomplish, and what kinds of operating system level kind of integrations are going to facilitate these experiences, and then you build them, and then maybe you get a little bit of analytics to figure out if anybody's opening them. But that's about it.
Like, see, those two idiots were wrong this whole time. Nobody uses them.
Nobody uses these iMessage stickers.
Exactly. Well, I guess that's it for today. You can learn more at PhillyCoco at phillycoco.org. There you'll find links to our Slack, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, please leave a review on Apple Podcast app and share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. Algorithms. Words used by programmers when they don't have to explain what they did. Till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always. You're like,